All right, folks, good morning. The House Criminal Justice Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Hope.
Here.
Representatives Andrews.
Here.
Carter. Breen.
Present.
Young.
Here.
Arbit. Devendorf.
Here.
Cerniglu.
Here.
Filler.
Yes.
Mueller.
Here.
Bazat. Harris.
Here.
Begall.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 10 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Cerniglu moves to adopt the minutes from the October 31st, 2023 meeting. Without objection, the minutes are adopted. Before we begin today, I just want to make an announcement that anyone who would like to speak during today's proceedings needs to turn in a white card. And those are just outside the room.
They're there too.
Oh, they're here too. So, we're now going to hear testimony on House Bills 5182 and 5183. I would invite Representative Menser and Representative Farhat up to the table. And begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on behalf of these bills that will combat the use of electronic tools designed to break into and steal motor vehicles. Keyless entry is standard on most new vehicles, and push-button starts on many new models are increasingly making car keys a thing of the past. This technology, however, is vulnerable to devices known as ProPads, which can be used to reprogram a key fob in minutes to gain entry into a vehicle and to start the engine. Although used legitimately by locksmiths and mechanics, these devices are also being used to steal thousands of vehicles across our state. In fact, I believe that they're responsible for the increase in stolen cars. In 2021, there were 21,238 cars stolen in Michigan. In 2022, the number increased to 25,735. I believe, again, that this has a lot to do with these electronic devices called ProPads. The testimony you will hear today highlights the need for our state legislator to act to address this issue. Michigan law already criminalizes the possession of certain burglars' tools with the intent to break into and steal from a depository. These bills would ensure those penalties apply to individuals who possess these tools with the intent to steal a depository itself, a motor vehicle. Our state appellate courts have upheld the application of this statute to include a wide variety of burglars' tools and depositories. These bills would help further clarify that the electronic devices and tools used to reprogram key fobs are considered burglars' tools under present statute. Additionally, it would also clarify that in alignment with existing court rulings, the term depository includes motor vehicles. Finally, it would bring the existing penalty for possession of a prohibited device with the intent to steal from a motor vehicle in line with the penalty for possession of a prohibited device with the intent to steal the vehicle itself. The penalties described in MCL 750.116 apply to the possession of these dangerous tools with the intent to use them for criminal purposes. Key programming devices are exceptional tools for auto theft, and while they can be expensive to procure, there have been reports of groups renting them out to others. As car thefts continue to increase across the state, these clarifications are necessary to enable law enforcement to stop theft rings and intercept would-be thieves before a vehicle is stolen. I'll turn it over to Representative Farhat.
Thank you, Representative Menser, and thank you, members of the Criminal Justice Committee, for taking the time to take up these very important bills. These devices are quite remarkable in how easy they make it for individuals to reprogram a new key. Where it becomes problematic is when they're used for criminal intent, when they're used to knowingly steal possessions within the vehicle or the vehicle itself. Now, what you folks on this committee will see today is just how easy, and some of you may already know, how easy these tablets are, because I know we have folks who are coming to testify that have brought them. But I want to highlight a little bit of why there's an urgency here. In my district, there's a local media outlet called TCD, and they had a series called Gone in 60 Seconds, where every week they would post the number of break-ins when people have these cameras in their driveways. And the car would be from the time the person got to that car to the time it left in less than 60 seconds, right? Now, under the leadership of our new chief, he's cracked down on that pretty hard, but it's very hard for him to be able to properly prosecute or bring forward charges against individuals who have these devices, because our statute currently does not have the means for that to happen. This is a public safety hazard. It's encouraging a greater number of auto-related break-ins and thefts. It's encouraging more crime to come back into neighborhoods, unfortunately. This is something that I hope my colleagues here on this body will take up, and I look forward to any questions we have about what we can do around this legislation.
Thank you. We do have a question from Representative Filler.
Big supporter of this legislation, worked on it last term. We had a discussion in committee last year. I don't know if you heard about that. And it was Representative LeGrand felt like we were taking the bill or we were being essentially too strict. And eventually we did an H3 sub that I believe you guys have adopted. So do you know if you adopted what we worked on last term, which it sort of split the baby on this a little to make it fair across the board?
So here's what I'll say, Representative Filler. On this legislation, I know there's been conversations about the maximum penalty being as much as 10 years, as much as 15 years. What we've done is we've said the maximum penalty with intent, so if there's criminal intent, is a maximum of 5 years, right? I can't speak to last year's legislations. I can just speak to that when we...
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's what we ended up with. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this legislation effectively reduces from 10 years to 5 the maximum imprisonment for knowingly possessing a substance, tool, or device adapted and designed for breaking into a motor vehicle with the intent to use it to steal property or money from inside the vehicle.
Thank you both.
Representative Breen?
Thank you. Yes, like Representative Filler, I recall these from last term, and they were a bit of a mess, and I think with a phone call, Reps Mueller and LeGrand straightened a lot of it out. I do share a little bit of the concern that the ACLU has. I'm fully supportive. I'm just wondering if we can make sure that we are being fair across the board. If somebody has these tools, it is unlikely that they are simply going into a car to steal change from a cup holder. That's probably not the case. However, I am concerned if they use these tools and that's all they do, is they steal change from the cup holder. So I would encourage you to work with the ACLU to maybe make sure that we tweak it so it is fair across the board, because we don't want to over penalize people. But this is, I think, a very good way to help address the increase in car thefts that we've been seeing, which it's, I can't remember what you said, Rep. Menser, how they've been exponentially increased.
It went from 21,238 in 2021 to 25,735 in 2022.
Thank you.
There's no figures available yet for 23.
That's a lot. And I know our partners in law enforcement have been great about helping to get these done, so thank you for bringing these forward.
Representative Carter?
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Madam Chair. Real quick, when I look at this, and we've done this with AmeriCorps on Tigers opening day, where we pass out fake tickets to people who just leave stuff in their cars in an area where there's high vandalism. They don't possess any tools. They just break windows. So when I look at this and I look at 5 years, we have to be solid on the intent when we do this, because I don't just want a guy who's having some homeless issues in a situation where it's visible. 5 years, that's a lot.
And Representative, if I may, the the way it's currently crafted, and we're open to feedback, at least I am, I'm sure Representative Menser is as well, but the way it's written now is that it's a maximum of 5 years, and if they have the intent, so they have to, one, the law enforcement partner has to be able to prove the intent, then the judge would have to sentence appropriately based on kind of what happened. But I'll welcome that feedback. I don't think we should necessarily be over prosecuting or over criminalizing certain actions, but I do think legislation like this makes it prohibitive for these organized kind of operations, the ones where you know, they pull up in a van and they go down a block and they just don't stop till they clean it out at night, right? That's kind of, I think, the intent for us.
And I hate to put it on the owners for a degree of culpability, but in certain neighborhoods, we tell them, hey, if you drive a Ford certain vehicle, put it in your driveway, put it in your garage. When you're coming downtown for sporting events, I know we're in a hurry, but you're opening yourselves up for this type of activity.
We do have several folks from law enforcement who are going to add to this testimony. Do you want to ask the bill sponsors? Okay. Apparently, Representative Ardbit needs to ask his question right now.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Apparently, I do. Thank you both for being here this morning and for being here. I do have a couple of questions. One is, I agree with what was said here before about disaggregating the penalties maybe a little bit more in terms of valuation of property that was stolen, or what was the intent to actually steal the car writ large, right? I think that there is definitely room to specify that and sort of disaggregate the penalty scheme from that point. And then also to the point that you made, Representative, about more organized crime, you could also specify that, and say that, if this was part and parcel of a larger operation, or if it was a second conviction or a third conviction, or, you can even put in a penalty increase on that. And so I think there's ways to sort of look at the sort of spectrum of the criminal activity that we're prescribing here, and maybe make a first offense maybe a little bit lighter. I mean, I think we all know that first offense, 5-year maximum, no one's going to get that 5-year maximum. They're probably not even going to get any prison time whatsoever, no MDOC time. But I do think if we're actually going to look at, severity, I think there is ways to disaggregate that. I'm happy to have conversations. I'm sure everyone on the committee would be happy to have conversations with you about that. But yeah, I definitely think there are ways to do that, sort of specifying a little bit more in depth the penalty scheme.
And I'll say, we welcome feedback. I think the point of this committee hearing especially is just to make sure that we make this known that this is a priority of this body, and that we're able to come back and rework maybe the penalty structure, rework some of the intent, and we make it informed based on our partners in the law enforcement world and our partners in the kind of civil liberty space. So I welcome that.
Yeah, and I do want to draw special attention to the point about organized crime, because I think that needs to be heavily, I think you should specify that in this bill.
I think some of our law enforcement friends that are going to stand up and speak here, I think they'll be able to clarify some of these issues for you, and I'm anxious to hear from them.
I am too, Representative Menser. Thank you. We have Officer Morgan from the Warren Police Department on Zoom, who will be testifying without video. You can go ahead whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I work with Joe Morgan from the Troy Police Department. I've worked in law enforcement just shy of 27 years and work in a undercover capacity where we've been monitoring stolen vehicles for the last couple of years. That numbers have gone through the roof. To start off, the Pro Pads are actually not used to break into the vehicles. The Pro Pads are used to unhook a OBD port near the airbag, hook up the Pro Pad to it, and then use that Pro Pad to reprogram key fobs, which in turn are used to steal a vehicle. So the Pro Pads are not used to break into a vehicle. They're not using a Pro Pad to break in to steal change, to steal credit cards. They're using, the one intent is to break in to steal a vehicle using that Pro Pad. The Pro Pads are supposed to be used by locksmiths and mechanics. They can be purchased online and vary on price depending on the software the unit has. The cheaper Pro Pad units have limited software downloaded, and the most expensive ones have a lot of software which allows them to access to more vehicles. Anyone in Michigan can order Pro Pad. You do not have to show your mechanic or locksmith. There are several states that mandate a license to purchase a pro pad, and the company who manufactures them in Vegas does the background check on each one to ensure they're locksmiths or mechanics before the unit is shipped out to them. We have noticed that subjects who have been purchasing pro pads repeatedly use fake names, fake email addresses, bad phone numbers when they purchase them online. Some of them purchase 5 to 10 pro pads at a time, and due to the street value of these units, they're sometimes rented between $500 and $1,000 per day, and those numbers are from subjects we've arrested for stealing cars. And we also noticed that when they ship the pro pads, they're using their neighbors' addresses, so they're not tracked back to their house. So they'll actually show up, wait for the FedEx or UPS to deliver it, and show up at their neighbor's house where the pro pad's delivered to. The suspects have been using pro pads to reprogram key fobs to steal vehicles. We have monitored several subjects who have traveled state to state with pro pads, have targeted vehicles at airports and dealerships. We recently worked a case where the suspects traveled to 6 states in 2 days and targeted airports and dealerships where they either stole a vehicle or attempted to steal one. They were later stopped in Michigan and a pro pad was recovered from the vehicle. We were able to retrieve the VINs off of the pro pad and connected the suspects to several more stolen vehicles from the historical records off the pro pad. Several police agencies, including our unit, have recovered several pro pads. We were able to obtain their historical records off of them. Most of those pro pads showed in excess of 25 stolen VINs on each one. In one recent one we recovered, there was 90 stolen VINs on the one pro pad. They're not only using a pro pad to steal vehicles, those stolen vehicles that are then used to commit additional crimes, shootings, breaking and enterings, retail frauds, and also to commit additional stolen vehicles with the one that they're currently using. I've also spoken to numerous locksmiths in the past 6 months regarding their pro pads being stolen while they were at work. They have told me that they are being set up. People call the locksmith and provide them with an address or phone number and request them to show up to unlock their vehicle. When they arrive, they either rob them for their pro pad or break into their vehicle and steal it, again, due to the street value of what they're worth. They no longer do nighttime lockouts due to the robberies, thefts, and 2 people have been shot for their pro pad in the last 2 years. The locksmiths also told me that they support licensing to possess a pro pad. They said these thefts and robberies have destroyed their business. We have received an increase in phone calls from out-of-state police agencies who recovered stolen vehicles from Michigan. A lot of those vehicles have already been retagged. We were able to check the stolen VINs. The pro pad company in Las Vegas have confirmed most of those vehicles were stolen with a pro pad. There are several ongoing investigations where innocent victims have murdered or shot because they walked outside while their vehicle was being stolen. Again, those incidents involve the pro pad being used to steal the victim's vehicles. There are also several other ways to steal a car, like a Kia. You can use a USB port cord for certain models. Some key fobs are left in an unlocked vehicle. Suspects open the car door, hit the push button, and the car starts. You can also push the vehicle with another stolen vehicle, push it down the street, hopefully get it started. But majority of these vehicles I'm talking about now are stolen with a pro pad. The car companies made drastic changes in the past for suspects to no longer crack or break the column to steal a vehicle. They just need to hook up a pro pad, which allows them to reprogram a key in order to steal a vehicle. We've also had issues where subjects were arrested for stealing a vehicle and a pro pad was confiscated as evidence. The prosecutors have charged the subjects with a computer crime for using the pro pad, but we lost several of those cases in court because there's no legislation in place that covers using a pro pad specifically. And also on top of that, using a computer in a commission of a felony is a 7-year felony. They were getting charged with a 7-year felony while stealing a vehicle with a computer. And the possession of burglar tools is also a 10-year felony. Some of the stats in the last couple of years for stolen vehicles in Troy alone, 2022, we had 145. 2023 had 149. These numbers I received from Detroit Police Department yesterday. 2021, they had 6,843 stolen cars. In 2022, 9,670. In 2023, 9,286. We also use a software company. We use Clemis for our online reporting or reporting of criminal activity. And just in 2022, there's 5,263 reported stolen vehicles. And in 2023, 5,977 stolen vehicles. Those numbers are separate from Detroit and from our cases as well. So again, the pro pads are not used to break into a vehicle. They're not used to take someone's change, credit cards, or any personal property out of the vehicle. Their sole intent purpose is either they break the window or open a car door, unhook the OBD ports, use the pro pad to connect to it, and then they are able to steal the car after they reprogram the key fob. Current case I'm working on now, there's multiple cases where the suspects are doing online tutorials on how the ProPad works and giving a 1 minute dissertation as they're stealing the vehicle, what buttons to push for the vehicle they're targeting. So again, I'm open here for any questions that I can answer. And again, I thank you for putting this forward.
Thank you, Officer Morgan. Oops. Sorry, everybody. Thank you, Officer Morgan. I think I misidentified you as being from a different police department. You're from the Troy Police Department. We do have a question from Representative Young.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you. I just wanted some clarity on those stats that you just shared with us. I wanted to know, with those 6,800 plus stolen cars, was that just the ProPad were used to steal the vehicles, or was that combined? And because I'm not really clear if the only way to steal newer cars is to use ProPads. There's no way to steal them the old-fashioned way. I really don't know. So perhaps you could help me understand that. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. Those are combined numbers I received from Detroit yesterday. I actually work with the auto theft unit in Detroit quite often. We work a lot of cases together involving the same suspects. You're right. The newer cars, you can't just jump in, crack the column, and steal it. All the newer cars from 2018 and newer, the ProPads are being used to steal those cars, whether it's Dodge, Ford. As of right now, the Cadillac Escalade is one of the vehicles that you cannot use a ProPad for, but the Dodge Challengers, the Chargers, and the high-end ones are, I'd say 85 to 90% right now, the ProPads being used to steal those. Some of the ones that are taken from Stellantis or the lots in Dearborn or some other locations, some of those places leave the key fobs in them. They just break into the lot and drive the cars through the fence to get out and steal, how many cars they can because the key fobs are left. But majority of these I'm talking about, these numbers, most of them are used for, the ProPads are used when they're stealing them.
Thank you. Any more questions for the officer? Okay, we'll turn now to Dearborn Police Chief Issa Shahin. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for convening this committee, and thank you for having me here.
red button.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for convening this committee, and thank you for having me here today. I happen to bring with me a ProPad. If anybody would like to see it, I'm happy to pass it around. Would you like me to bring it up to you? Sure. As we all know, a ProPad is a locksmith tool that can program keys for vehicles. Some models can take up to 15 minutes, while other models, like Chrysler vehicles, can be made in under 30 seconds. In 2023, 41% of all vehicles stolen in the city of Dearborn were Chrysler products. There's no doubt that a ProPad was used in the majority of these thefts. Dearborn officers regularly come across these devices during the course of their auto theft investigations. In Dearborn alone, I would estimate that well over 200 vehicles were stolen using ProPad devices in the last 2 years. I can't even begin to imagine how many vehicles are stolen statewide using these devices. Now, in 1966, the Michigan legislature made it unlawful to possess a master key. A master key was a key used by mechanics and locksmiths, and it was designed to open locks on more than one motor vehicle. Almost 60 years later, the ProPad is the modern master key. This legislation will allow law enforcement across the state to address criminal auto theft rings who are using ProPad devices to steal Michigander vehicles. And the one thing I would like to add, the last thing that I want to do is criminalize young kids or the poor for breaking into cars and stealing change. I think it's important to understand the distinction here. This device is used, and the only sole purpose of it is to steal people's cars. And I think we often aren't mindful of people when they get their cars stolen. A vehicle is truly, it's more than just a car. It's going to take you to your doctor's appointments. It prevents people from going to work. If you don't have full coverage insurance, you've just lost your ability to go to work and get around. And so it really is a crime with victims attached to it. These aren't just numbers. They're folks that have really lost quite a bit when their cars get stolen. That's all I have here today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Representative Breen has a question.
Just more of a statement. I want to thank you for the clarification, because I personally, as somebody who practiced insurance and family law, I thought you could just use these to open the cars and then do whatever with them. But now it's to my understanding that anybody who possesses a ProPad, it is their intent to steal the vehicle. There's really no doubt about it. Is that your understanding as well? Have you encountered any cases where they are just using it to maybe get the change out of the cup holder or take somebody's laptop?
Representative Breen, absolutely not.
Okay.
Oftentimes, you'll have young folks that will just pull on door handles till they find an unlocked vehicle.
Okay. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any more questions for you. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
We are still looking at your ProPad up here. Make sure you get it back before you leave.
Take your time.
All right, next we have Mark Hackle, who is the Macomb County Executive and former Sheriff of Macomb County. Go ahead and get started whenever you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and one of my favorite committees, law enforcement. From my past background in law enforcement, I spent 30 years at the Sheriff's Department, now 13 years doing something called County Executive. Still trying to figure out what that job is, but the former job entailed a lot of what we're talking about here today. And kind of my unique story, and I'll just be brief on it. I had the unfortunate opportunity to have helped my nephew get a key from a dealership, and it's not like the normal keys you get when you have to get a key from the Ace Hardware or the Kmart stores back when you were younger. You just put it on a one that would mimic it, and they'd kind of grind it down, you'd get a key. Today, when the new keys that you have for these newer vehicles, you actually have to have a fob that is bought, and then you have to have the dealership actually use one of these type of ProPads to make sure that it can computerize the actual key itself to recognize how the car works. Well, in having a conversation with the individual that was doing this at the dealership, this is far beyond my understanding of how they deal with the technology. It was unique, and hearing how they had to do this and set it up, it was rather quick, but yet the bill was about $300 by the time they got done, just for a new key for that particular car. And so when I had conversations about this, and the former gentleman that was speaking earlier, Joe Morgan, I taught him in the academy back in the day, and he's still been a good friend of mine ever since. And I hear about his stories and what he does and the incredible work he and law enforcement are doing on a daily basis. I shared the story with him, and he started sharing his story and about the challenges they're facing when it comes to people stealing vehicles with that particular item, that ProPad. And interesting enough, I had shared this conversation with Representative Menser, and her father was former law enforcement. She was very interested in the concern and wanted to make sure she brought it to everyone's attention to see if we can keep up with the challenges we're facing in law enforcement and the technology out there that we're competing against. And so I think that's why you're dealing with this particular issue. It's basically trying to give law enforcement an opportunity to deal with car thieves that are finding different ways of breaking, not just breaking into cars, but after they break into the cars, how do they get the cars running and so they can actually steal them? And I think you just heard testimony from the chief who had brought that up. This is not about breaking into a car. In fact, there are laws that deal with people that just want to break into a car and steal the change from a cup holder. In fact, those laws have the very same penalties as a 5-year felony to have a larceny from a vehicle. And that is not what these ProPads are being used for. And in fact, somebody who is breaking into a car to steal change, I would very much doubt they will have a ProPad in their possession. That is not their intent. I think the people that have the interest in trying to steal the car aren't there to try to steal the change or any other items inside the car. Maybe an afterthought, but the reality is they're trying to break into that car to steal it, and they're using this technology to do it. So with that being said, I think all we're looking for, and all law enforcement is looking for, and having talked to the sheriff of Macomb County, Anthony Wickersham, who runs the Macomb Auto Theft Squad, they are faced with this challenge, and they recognize there is a need to keep up with the laws and the statutes to help assist law enforcement if somebody is trying to break into a vehicle and they're using this particular technology to do so. This would very much cover that, and I think the 5-year felony portion of that mirrors basically what you would see with any other type of burglary tool. So I would encourage you to support this bill on behalf of law enforcement. And I know those in law enforcement in Macomb County do support this as well. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? I see no questions. Thank you very much. We do have Gabriel Dresner from ACLU Michigan who would like to testify in opposition. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me to testify today. So you've already heard some of the ACLU's concerns from members on the committee. We do have concerns with the sort of right-sizedness of this bill. You've heard a lot of talk about how pro pads are only used to steal vehicles, and while that may be true, the way the bill is currently written expands it to a machine, tool, or implement device with the intent of breaking in to a motor vehicle with the intent to steal the vehicle or money or property from the vehicle. So the way the bill is currently written could still be used to charge someone for stealing change from the cup holder, for stealing a laptop that's sitting on somebody's seat, if they use any tool or implement to break into that vehicle. So while the pro pad may only be used to steal the vehicle, the way the bill is currently written is still much broader than that. So we would really appreciate the opportunity to work with the sponsors on this bill to sort of right-size it so that people who do, for example, smash a window with a brick and steal change from the car are not getting penalties up to 5 years, excuse me, up to 5 years in prison for stealing something of a lower value than the car. MCL, 750.356A, Section 2A, states that if the value of the property is less than $200, then the person is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by imprisonment for not more than 93 days or a fine of not more than $500 or 3 times the value of the property, whichever is greater. So that's just one example of the MCL that already covers theft from a motor vehicle. It goes up from there with the value of the property. The penalty goes up as well. So there are already MCLs that cover this sort of theft. We would just like to see this bill sort of right-sized so that we're not overly criminalizing people. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some cards to read in. Karen Johnston, representing Toyota, supports 5182 and 5183, does not wish to speak. Joseph Adams from the Michigan FOP supports both bills, does not wish to speak. Matt Saxton from the Michigan Sheriff's Association supports both bills, does not wish to speak. Kurt Berryman from the Michigan Auto Dealers Association supports the bills, does not wish to speak. Dave Worthams from the Michigan Manufacturers Association supports the bills, does not wish to speak. And Brandon Lanyon from PAM, the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan, supports the bill, does not wish to speak. And that concludes testimony on House Bills 5182 and 5183. We are going to go at ease and hear testimony on 5393.
Committee will come to order. Chair recognizes Chair Hope and Trevor Van Dyke to testify on 5393.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very simply, this bill 5393 is kind of a cleanup bill for the Justice for Kids and Communities package that we heard last year during the summer and fall, and which was signed into law in December. There's a reference missing to a statute, and so to make sure that the bill serves its intended purpose, we need to correct that. It's very, very technical, very straightforward. It's not a policy change, and to reiterate that point, I'll let Deputy Counsel Trevor Van Dyke from the Michigan Supreme Court speak.
Yes, thank you. just to echo the comments, the package, 15-bill package that was passed last year, two of the bills had conflicting sections referencing the same section of law, dealing specifically with the consent calendar. And this bill is the technical follow-up to correct it to meet what the intended recommendation of the Juvenile Justice Reform Task Force final report recommended, and that is to increase the consent calendar up to 6 months. So SCAO supports this change as it would align with that task force recommendation. And as kind of a high-level overview, I know there's going to be, I think, some technical expert more so that can provide more detail on the consent calendar. But consent calendar is an informal option available for the courts when it is determined that formal jurisdiction over juvenile is not necessary. It provides opportunity to receive the most appropriate community-based service while not having formal adjudication on the record. And the juvenile guardian and prosecutor must agree to the case be placed on the consent calendar. And I believe Tom Liddick, who's the Juvenile Service Director of Ottawa County, will be providing additional background information on the consent calendar this morning. So thank you.
Looks like no questions, so thank you both.
Thank you.
Committee will go at ease.
The committee will return to order. And we have Tom Laddick from the Michigan Association of Family Court Administrators on Zoom. Go ahead and start when you're ready, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me in this morning. Yes, I'm Tom Laddick. I am the Juvenile Court Director here at the 20th Circuit Court in Ottawa County. I'm also the past president of the Michigan Association for Family Court Administration, and I was a part of the Juvenile Reform Task Force the last few years. It's my pleasure to be with you. I believe Trevor covered most of the technical aspects to the consent calendar. I will just add that the reason for the extension in months over the diversion process is that typically on the consent calendar, there is the chance that more serious crimes could be added to the consent calendar, meaning more informal supervision by the court is necessary. Again, it has prosecutorial approval, so the involvement from the judge and the prosecuting attorney from the county are very actively a part of this approval process. But again, diversion doesn't typically allow assaultive crimes where the consent calendar may. And so the extension of time was meant to allow for that to be monitored as though more time was needed to look at the nature of the seriousness of the crime and the behavior of the youth. And so that is why they added that. I'm available to answer any other questions that you might have in this process.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Appreciate your testimony. Sharday Burton from the Department of Health and Human Services supports the bill, does not wish to speak. And Jen Peacock from the Michigan Center for Youth Justice supports the bill and does not wish to speak. We'll now have a vote on 5393. I'll take a motion to report 5393 with recommendation. Representative Breen moves. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Hope,
Yes.
Representatives Andrews,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Breen. Aye. Young,
Yes.
Arbit,
Yes.
Devendorf,
Yes.
Cerniglu,
Yes.
Filler,
No.
Mueller,
No.
Bazat, Harris,
No.
Bagul.
No.
Madam Chair, you have 8 yeas, 4 nays, and 0 pass. House Bill 5393 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you. Representative Young moves to excuse absent members. There being no objection, the motion prevails by unanimous consent. And there being no further business before the committee stands adjourned.
Thanks, Chair.